So yeah, the upper body. So it's upper lower, 4 days a week, and it's focused on weekend warrior, a 1 day a week weekend warrior basketball player who is unnamed and definitely not someone in the chat right now. So the goal is the main goals were mainly hypertrophy for upper body, and then maintaining or progressing athletic performance in the sport, and also getting stronger in the lower extremity, with also a focus on hypertrophy, but probably strength and basketball performance more important. So the reason, so I typically like to start my weeks with a lower session. I usually go lower, upper, lower, upper. That's just how I prefer to do it. But it depends on like when your last day is of the week, and that like sometimes it really doesn't matter. That's just the way I like to do it. But I did upper for the first day here because Sunday, so this is Monday, Sunday is going to be the day that they play basketball. So I needed an easy lower body, or ideally nothing, the day after. So this is going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then basketball Sunday. So that there's a full day rest between this day and when they play basketball. So we'll kind of just go out everything kind of one by one here. Like I said, the focus of the upper body stuff is mostly hypertrophy, so that's where we're kind of at with this. There's no like sports performance specific things in this, other than your general pressing exercises, which are probably going to be beneficial. So this person did not like bench pressing that much, did not really care about it that much. So I went with a push-up as the main chest movement for the day. And then kind of just, the reason I do push-up is just so that they can get some actual shoulder blade movement and not just do all of their presses locked into a retracted position. And I really like a deficit push-up for the extra range of motion. So 4 sets, 6 to 10. Progression scheme for these are just going to be a typical dynamic double progression, or just a straight double progression, kind of letting him choose what he wants to do for it, but obviously with the goal of hypertrophy. And I mean, if you're in the 6 to 10 range, you're still working strength as well. And then chin-ups probably could be supersetted if you wanted to. That's kind of the intention with a lot of these, is like they could be supersetted if need be. And then with the chin-ups, it's so they can only do a couple of body weight. So we were doing a top set of unassisted body weight with 2 reps in reserve, and then we're doing 2 back off sets on the assisted machine of chin-ups. And then this is going to be taken to failure, pretty much to failure. So this is in like a 5 to 8 range. Still kind of focused on strength to be kind of specific to their regular chin-up, so it's not going to be that much unloaded with the assisted, but pretty, staying in a similar range. Yeah, exactly. But we're staying in a similar range to what like I would want their body weight capability to be, so that we're more specific to that, because that's the goal. I could assist this in different ways, but they liked using the assisted machine. That's an easy way to do it. I don't have to teach them anything. It's easy that way. Then we go into pec fly, another chest isolation to get the rest of our chest volume in here on the day. That'll give us 7 sets of chest on the day. And I think we get a similar amount on the second day. So you're sitting around like 14 sets a week, which is in that, optimal range. Probably on the higher end that I prefer. I'm more of a lower volume type of person with more intensity, but it all works. And then wide grip row of choice. He didn't really have a preference, so letting him have basically a pronated wide grip row of choice to give him a different movement pattern from his chin up. And then arms were, well, not arm, but biceps were a heavy focus for the hypertrophy side of things, so that there's a little bit more volume of that. So preacher curl on one day, because that hits, basically it hits the brachialis a little bit more, because it does it while it's in its most lengthened position, but the bicep is not in its most lengthened position. There is research on the preacher curl to say that it gives larger upper arm size gains than like a regular curl, and I think it's because of that. It's not necessarily targeting the biceps in a lengthened position, it's targeting the brachialis in a lengthened position, because it doesn't cross the shoulder joint. So like if I were to choose the optimal bicep hypertrophy setup, it would be a preacher curl and some kind of lengthened position for the bicep. So that would be like an incline curl, or like a Bayesian curl, some kind of behind the back curl. So on this day it's preacher curl. Cable lateral raises to hit lengthened position for side delts. I think I'm pretty sure there's also research on the fact that dumbbells pretty much are equivalent to doing this. I think it was just one randomized control trial, so take it with a grain of salt, but it doesn't really matter. I just like these, and I think they'll like them too, and it's a bit of a change from what they were doing. Hammer curl, hitting brachialis again, but also hitting brachioradialis a little bit more, so that's top forearm muscle here, because forearms were another focus that he wanted. So this is hitting one of our biggest forearm muscles. And then tricep push down to finish it off. Triceps were not as big of a focus, but still a great accessory for pressing movements and obviously overall hypertrophy. So the lower body day is where we're getting into the sports specific stuff. So the warm up, we talked about it, but for him it's going to be like running drills, like your high knees, butt kicks, different kinds of skips, A skips, B skips, that kind of stuff. Just basically get blood flowing and work on some basically like running mechanics in it. And then we're going into pogo jumps, where he's building up to a pretty decent intensity and then lowering back down in intensity. Nah, you're good, James. All I did was talk about the hypertrophy side of it. You can watch it when you can watch it on the VOD if you want, but I'm probably gonna upload this to something. Anyways, the pogo jumps, it's like, so building up to like a decent vertical jump basically. So it's like we're here and just like starting with an easy pogo and then building and building and building into like a pretty decent, like maybe like 75 to 80% vertical jumps, and then slowly building back down. More of just like an extensive plyometric to just build more capacity in the muscles that he uses to jump. Not necessarily like training max vertical with this, just kind of getting more volume to increase, like I said, increase his capacity to jumping. And then 60 foot, because that's just the space that he has in his gym. Sprints from a half meal start. Yeah. So, I mean, his goal is specifically basketball, so this is like, and it's a weekend warrior type, so like these are not very specific like protocols. Like I'm not getting fancy with these, it's just like, let's just do some basic stuff and get really good at it type of thing. 50-foot sprints with a half needle start. The reason for the half needle start is to focus on acceleration, because I'm sure that's probably the thing he's probably worked on the least, and top speed is really not that important in basketball. So the reason for a half needle start is because to get out of a half kneel position, I have to lean forward a lot. So to get out of this position, I need to be here. And you can see how forward my trunk lean is. So I'm getting more glute out of that as well, just because the glute's more lengthened. So I'm focusing on glute drive out of your start position, but also mimicking the angles that I want in acceleration, because I'm sure, obviously I haven't looked at his sprinting, but I'm going to assume that he probably lacks some of that trunk lean to get more optimal acceleration. So that's kind of just to drill better acceleration. 4 to 6 rounds of that. basically I want him sprinting once a week and then doing more intense jumping once a week. That's my protocol for him, just to build capacity. Obviously, for basketball, I might want to sprint. I mean, 1 time a week is fine. Maybe 2 times a week would be better. And then same thing, maximal jumping. I think maybe 2 times a week would probably also be better. But this is a good starting point, and we can build from here if we need to. Yeah. I think actually in the program, in the fine print, it says give me 25 jumping jacks right now. Yeah, 3 trillion jumping jacks actually. No. So this should take like 15, 20 minutes. So it shouldn't really take very long. Kind of almost use it as a warm up and to potentiate his strength movements afterwards as well. And then back squat, 4 sets, 3 minutes rest between. That's just the minimum I would take on any major strength movement. And then the way we are progressing his strength work is going to be extremely simple. Because again, we don't need to get fancy. Still in the early intermediate to late novice phase of lifting. So it's like, we don't need to get super crazy. Honestly, probably could be running like a 5x5 starting strength, like probably could still eke some gains out of that, but I think he's a little bit further along where he could probably get a little bit more complicated with it. But anyways, we're starting with a set of 2 reps at RPE 5 to 6. So essentially, the block is just increasing reps over time and just giving him a runway to progress. So he picks a weight that is an RPE 5 to 6 at 2 reps. And then he's going to add a rep to that every single week until he hits 5 reps. And then once he hits 5 reps, he's now going to increase the weight by 5 pounds. So he's essentially doing 4-week waves of weight increases. So it's like I get to the top point of my reps, and then I add weight and I do it again. And he's going to keep waving up and up and up and up and up. And every block is going to start at this RPE 5 to 6, so it gives him a huge runway to progress, essentially, initially. The first block starts that way, and then we kind of progress along. And then once he gets all the gains he can get out of this, then we can do a more complicated progression scheme. But this is like extremely simple. He'll get a lot of decent gains out of this. I think he's like just beyond the point where he would like benefit from like a 5x5 type program. So this is kind of where my head's at. And then if he fails the set more than 1 week in a row, you just lower the weight and then finish that block with whatever that lighter weight is. And then at that point, the block is now over and we need to reset and go back and do this again. So in theory, this could just be run infinitely, because once it's fully over and he's failed a weight 2 times in a row, he can just go back and just do a set at RP 5 to 6 again, and whatever that is, he just starts again. So that's our squat pattern. We're getting a single leg hinge pattern here. Doesn't really care about like a regular. Like a double leg RDL or anything. So like I just put in single leg to maybe get him a little bit more unilateral work for sports, which is just beneficial because we do most of our sports on a single leg. Now that's not to say that double leg movements are useless. Double leg movements are probably most of the important things you do in the gym for sports because you're building your maximal output. But this just gives him some unique benefits that he won't get with the double leg stuff. Anyways, so a single leg hinge on this day, 3 sets of 5 to 8, shorter rest periods here, and an RPE 8 cap. So he's going to be running a double progression or a dynamic double progression. If you want to know what that is, look it up on YouTube. I'm not going to explain it here. It's very, it's beaten to death. You can find a video on it if you want to know what that progression is. But just with an RPE 8 cap, because these can get pretty heavy and fatiguing. So, and then hamstring curl right after that. Finish off hamstrings. Finish with some calves and some abduction to work on the lateral hip, which again, just something that will be useful for sports and something most like average programs are probably not going to get a lot of. And then yeah, so pretty much hit every major muscle group, and this is going to be a more potent hypertrophy day for the posterior chain, and you'll see the other day is going to be a more potent hypertrophy stimulus for the anterior chain, the quads. So, but he's still getting his maximal quad work in this day. And then upper day 2, it's just pretty much like a mirror image of the first program. Like whatever we focused on that day, there's just slightly different focus on this day to kind of even everything out. Machine shoulder press, doesn't care about barbell overhead pressing or any kind of strength movement for overhead pressing, so this is just what we decided. There's nothing wrong with using machine movements to develop strength. It's, there's dude, what do you mean? Chin-ups are the best. I am a huge chin-up enjoyer, and so is this person. But anyways, yeah, there's no downside to use it. Like, yes, you're taking stability components out of the movement, but it's incredibly easy to load. Very good for hypertrophy, which is his main goal anyways. And he'll still gain a lot of strength from it, especially in this rep range. So, yeah, well, the goal is we want to build his capacity to do it with body weight because we're not where we want to be right now. So same thing as the other day, but we're doing 1 rep in reserve instead of 2 reps in reserve. So this is a little bit higher intensity on the chin-ups this day. Just so that he's not like doing the same intensity every single day on this, so he doesn't feel like it's monotonous. So it's like, one day I work a little harder, one day I work a little less hard. And I would probably put more reps in reserve on this day if he could do more, but because he can't really do that many right now, I think 2 reps in reserve is fine. Where are we at? So, and then rep range changed a little bit for the 2 back offsets, but these are both taken to failure, progressed with a double progression. And then incline chest press, just to get some more chest volume this day. Chest hypertrophy was a major goal, so I wanted to have it included in both days. I think there's 6 sets on this day, so we get 13 sets total for the week. Wide grip row choice again, same thing as the other day. This is just a little bit higher rep range just to keep things fresh, but probably a different movement entirely from the first day. And then incline curl, so that's what I was talking about, or a cable behind the back, also called a Bayesian curl. One of those to complement the preacher curl that he does on the other day. And then skull crusher because he likes them. And we needed another tricep movement, so there it is. And this puts tricep in a more lengthened position, so whatever, yada yada, science, more hypertrophy. And then hammer curls again, just in a lower rep range. So, because we wanted to make sure we had that extra emphasis on biceps and forearms. So now we're on to the lower day 2. There will be a rest day in between this lower day and this upper day. Like I said, it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So warm up again, not going to go over that again. We're doing approach jumps. So he really hasn't done any jumping training in the longest time, so let's make it simple and just practice the most specific jump to his sport at low, at decent intensities, and just get better at that. And then once we run out of steam on that, then we can, get a little bit more complicated. But that's really all it needs to be right now. So 3 to 5 to keep him in that power. So we're training for power development in an approach jump. And these should be, these are going to be almost maximal effort. So like, these should be extremely intense and in that power training rep range, which is your 1 to 5 reps typically. 6 reps. 1 to 6 reps. 3 to 5 sets. My mistake. This could even be down to like 3 to 6 reps, but we just chose 6 reps because I'm assuming, I don't remember why, but looking back, if I had to think about a rationale for it, probably just to get more volume in versus going down to like 3 reps where he's not getting as much practice. 1 to 2 minute rest. you want to get, with like a power movement like this, you want to get at least like a 1-to-5 ratio in terms of rest. So like, however long the set takes to perform, you want to rest, 4 to 5 times that typically. And we're going to go into this. This is more of like a change of direction versus acceleration. Well, it is still focused on acceleration, but versus like a straight sprint, this is more focused on change of direction. A 5-10-5 drill is like, if you've ever seen it, like, I don't know if they do it in the combine, but it's a typical football drill for lots of like receivers, field, those kind of like cornerbacks, stuff like that. Anyways, you start in the middle of a 10-yard thing. You sprint 5 one way, sprint 5 this way, and then sprint 10 across to the other 5. You're going 5 and then the other 5, and then you come back to the center. So 5-10-5. Just focused on plant and cut off of a full sprint. 3 rounds of that, 1 minute rest. Less rest with this to kind of get a slight little bit of cardio out of it. Also just to save time because these take a while. Volume pretty low on these. These are more just like, can we get better at doing this versus like getting a lot of volume in with it. And then single leg forward hops. This is just more extensive jumping to give him more of a baseline tissue capacity for jumping. Deadlift. This is the start of the main strength movements for the day. Literally the same progression as the squat, just the same thing. Super simple. Not going to go over that again. And then a unilateral leg movements. This is a Bulgarian split squat. So we had a unilateral hinge last time. We're going to do a unilateral squat this day. Same progression. Exactly the same. So I won't talk about that. And then leg extension to finish off, because like I said, this is a more quad-focused hypertrophy day with the hinge strength as the main focus in the beginning half. And then another calf movement, because you can never get enough calves for a basketball player. And then Copenhagen's to get a little bit of adductor strength as well. I'm a huge fan of Copenhagen's. There's a lot of research to support that they reduce the chance of adductor strains. With a weekend warrior type person playing a change of direction sport like basketball, protecting their adductors is probably a good idea. So getting him some exposure to and some capacity to lengthened adductor positions. So I said he could do holds to kind of start off with until he gets good at them, and then he can progress into like hip drops, again lengthening the adductors a little bit. And this is just like 1 to 2 sets to failure. Nothing very like we're just throwing it in there, like barely tracking it. It's just like, let's just start doing it, and then if we want to get into the weeds of tracking it later, we can, but like let's just do it. And this is like, if we want to skip it, maybe we can, like if we're short on time, that kind of thing. Yeah, you should plan on injuring yourself in every possible way for the first week so that you can ride the bench and watch everybody else play the rest of the weeks. That's the best plan, James. Correct. So that's the whole program. I could put some upper body, power movements, plyometric movements in there. He wasn't really interested in it. I don't think he necessarily needs it, especially as like a, weekend warrior type. This is just like, let's introduce the concept of actually training for the sport while also getting great hypertrophy and strength training in. Take out the chin-ups and it's perfect. No, I love chin-ups. They also like chin-ups, so it was perfect to put into the plan. So yeah.